our first speaker is Fonz Jenkins, and I had the good fortune of meeting Fonz in 2008 when he started selling Cutco. I want to tell you a little bit about Fonz. So, how many of you feel like you didn't really have a lot of people to show Cutco to when you got started? Well, so here's the deal. Back in 2008, the way that we used to sell Cutco was you used to go to someone's home, sit down, roll out the knives, and explain the knives to them. And so doing things virtually just didn't work. So Fonz is originally from Arkansas, but he started selling Cutco in Iowa where he was going to college, and he knew one person in all of Iowa that he could do a demo for. Right. So can you imagine how fearful you'd be wondering, like, am I going to run out of people? Like, that would be Fonz. Well, anyways, Fonz sold $10,000 that summer, which again, it's a great accomplishment, right? Some of you, again, maybe you're looking to do huge things and sell 30, 40, 50,000. That's fantastic. I want to let you know that most people don't do that. But what I can tell you is that if you hit $10,000, you're going to get a President's Club letter, which is a letter of recommendation from the president of the company. And in my opinion, that's the number one thing. Like, you want to, check that off as fast as possible. Some of you hit that in 10 days, right? Congratulations if that was you. But some of you, that might take you a little bit of time to do. Maybe you've got a part-time job. Maybe you're going to do one appointment a week or one appointment a day. Maybe you've got other activities that you're involved in. I know Fonz was playing football at Grinnell College when that happened. So he only had, part of the summer to sell, but he sold $10,000, again, starting out with one name. He became an assistant manager the following summer and sold 10,000 each of those summers as well. The good news is he's, once you sell 10,000, you never go below 30%. So while he made 2,000 his first summer, the second summer, he sold 10,000 at 30%. He made 3,000, plus he was paid as an assistant manager. So there's advancement opportunities for people, even if they sell, I'm going to say, as little as $10,000. Well, his third summer, again, that he was making more than 30%. And so he made a lot more money that third summer. And he did that kind of fighting, scratching, and clawing because, again, he didn't have a huge lead base in Iowa because he was from Arkansas. He ended up graduating and leaving Vector. So he went to work with a Fortune 500 company, I believe it is. And he decided to come back to Vector 7 years after he started. He was selling part-time. So he had a full-time job at a big company, right? And he was like, I've got this extra time. Why don't I sell some Cutco on the side? That's how he started selling Cutco again. And the cool thing is that he started selling so much Cutco that he was making more than his full-time job at a Fortune 500 company. So it was a good job. So you know what he said? He was like, well, I'm enjoying this job more and I'm making more. Why don't I try this out? And I want to, again, this is the same person that sold 10,000 for a summer, 3 summers in a row. Well, that year in 2015, he was the number one representative in the company as a new representative, because he counted as a new representative. He won a silver cup. The next year he hit Court of Honor, which is $250,000 in sales. And then the next year in 2018, he hit Hall of Fame, which is $1 million in sales. So in just a short amount of time, he went from about 30,000 in sales to over $1 million in sales. As such, he earned a Rolex watch, and you earn a Rolex watch when you sell over $225,000 of Cutco. He has earned 4 national incentive trips all across the world. And his best year in sales was in 2018, where he sold just over $400,000. And ladies and gentlemen, again, he makes half. So he made 200 grand selling Cutco when, the summers before that, he was making, $2,000. Right. So it's not what you do, it's what you do with what you do that really matters. He's currently at $1.68 million in personal sales. That's like sitting down with customers. That's just absolutely outstanding. By the way, he transitioned to run an office this last year. We all know the pandemic kind of upended many things. And one of Fonz's, his main source of income selling Cutco was at different events like the Iowa State Fair, the Nebraska State Fair, things like that. As you all know, those are all shut down. So he approached Buddy approached him, and they said, hey, look, let's find a way for you to help manage people. And so that's what he did. He ran an office last year, and he sold so far $96,000. He sold about $100,000 as this part-time job again. He made about $50,000 part-time because his main job is running an office and helping people be effective at what they do. So, what I want to share with you is he's got a trademark Fonz close that not only our best representatives use, our best top representatives, but our top Cutco sales professionals. These are people that sell anywhere from 200,000 to 6, 7, 8, and even $1 million. It is a trademark. What you're getting right now, if you implement what he talks about, you're gonna do so much better. So make sure you've got a good active pen ready to roll and take some good notes. You're gonna hear from Fonz on the Fonz close. By the way, last thing, his dream is to be an actor one day. So I told you he's got his full-time job running an office, his part-time job selling Cutco, and you'll see him occasionally on commercials, by the way. So he has this dream that he's always hustling, and I love that about him. And just in case you're wondering, he wrote this about himself. He's the third oldest of 8 from a low-income family and background, and he's a great model of someone who pulled himself up by his own bootstraps and found a way to succeed. So Fonz Jenkins.
Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Fonz Jenkins and I am the DM for the Central Kansas region and Frontier. And I want to say welcome. Welcome to SE1. You made it. You're here. It's happening. It's right now. Kudos to you for investing in yourself, both personally and also professionally and ultimately from a financial standpoint as well. Now, there's a few things I want to share with you before we get into and dive into the message. If you're here, be here. Be present, right? There's going to be so many cool, awesome messages to learn from. And the best way I've learned from these type of conferences is, I hear them, I take a lot of notes. And if I hear a phrase that I'm like, ooh, that sounds good, I'll jot it down where I can put it into my demo. If you hear a nugget and it's like, oh, that's really nice, jot it down and put it into your demo. And that's the best way to learn from these conferences is take little bits from each talk, each message, and weave it into your presentation and ultimately present that to your customers. So ultimates, that's what I'm here to talk to you about. And it's one of those things where, again, like I said, it really didn't start clicking for me until this year because I've been able to kind of field train and see some of the top people in the company do their thing. And so I'm going to share with you, like I said before, I'm going to share with you some of the best practices and also some things that I've developed along the way to leverage and also be a little bit more confident in talking about the ultimate. So let's get into the slideshow here, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everybody. But when it comes to selling ultimates, one of the first questions you really have to ask yourself, and you got to be honest with you, and myself included, I had to stop and ask myself, and be honest, was I even showing ultimates, right? We get into a habit of showing the sets that we are more comfortable with, sets that we personally like, pieces that we like the most, right? And so you have to ask yourself, are you even showing it? And a lot of people just don't show it. And how can you sell an ultimate if you don't even show it? How can a customer purchase an ultimate if they don't even know about it? And so the biggest hump, right? The biggest hump is actually just showing it. So here's a few reasons why people kind of wimp out in showing the ultimate, and myself included before this year. A lot of these reasons that you see here are exact reasons why I wasn't selling ultimates. I always thought that, hey, the ultimate was too expensive. But again, I was thinking from my own perspective, right? I wasn't thinking from the customer perspective. And as a result, I was doing the customer a disservice by not showing them the ultimate because I thought it was too expensive for them. Who am I to tell the customer that it's too expensive for them, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing, what is this piece used for? There's so many pieces in the ultimate, right? When I was first thinking about it, I'm like, why would you even need all these pieces? Who in the world needs 12 steak knives, right? But then I got out of that perception and I started thinking, well, if you got a really big family, if you cook, 3 to 5 times during a week, if you love cooking, right? If it's a passion of yours, the ultimate is perfect for you. And again, you do customers a disservice if you're not showing it to them. Same thing with the mini pieces. Same thing with, rich people only buy ultimates. I really used to think that only rich people bought ultimates, and it's just so far from the truth. And the only reason I've been able to experience and see that is because, Well, hey, I've actually started showing them. Now, a lot of people will say, okay, well, yeah, you got to show it, but how do you do that? Well, you educate yourself on it. And so, yeah, when I educated myself on the ultimate, I knew how many pieces were in that set. I knew how many combinations I can make. I knew how to explain the ultimate to the customer in a way that made sense to them. And when you're explaining the ultimate to the customer, if they're not going, uh-huh, that makes sense in their head, then they're not going to go for the ultimate. And so there's a couple different things that you can do to kind of educate yourself on the ultimate. First of all, go to the website, get the price. The price is in our app there. Actually put an ultimate, a mock order in your app, and just see what it is to bonus, and put it in there, and put the actual ultimate in the app, and play around with it. But then the other thing you could do to educate yourself too is field training, right? So field training with top people that are selling ultimate. Vector Connect talks. There's so many Vector Connect talks. If you don't know how to get on Vector Connect and listen to those talks, ask your manager, because they're super valuable and they're free. They're free. I've worked with different companies where you would pay so much for a lot of the content that reps Cutco shares and collaborates with you. So definitely take advantage of that if you're not doing that. Second thing is, do you know what combinations that you can offer with the ultimate, right? So did you know that you can do the ultimate with half steak knives and half table knife? Did you know that you can do the ultimate in a bundle package? Did you know that you can do the ultimate in a B block? All these things right here, these are things and tools that help you actually pitch the ultimate and help the customer see, why the ultimate is a really good choice for them. And then secondly, when you're explaining the pieces, when you're going through the names and uses, you have to explain to the customer and let them know why they needed a piece that they didn't ever need or didn't ever know they needed. I'm sorry. So for an example, I'll give you a really cool example here, the salmon knife, right? That used to be my Achilles heels, because I'm like, I don't eat salmon, I don't cook salmon, I don't know how to prepare salmon, I don't know how to do. But once I learned how to pitch the salmon knife as more than a salmon knife, then I'm telling you, the customer, you would see it in their face. They're like, oh, okay, it's not just a salmon knife, because that'd be an expensive knife just to use on one food. It's a salmon knife that happens to do this, and this, right? And once you make it make sense for the customer, that's again building the value up over the price, right? This is what we learned in training. And when that value is super high over the price, now they're in a position where they can actually make a legitimate decision on whether they want to purchase it or not. So, few things here in terms of painting a picture. Once you've educated yourself and you really have, zeroed in on everything ultimate, right? So knowing everything you possibly can know about the ultimate, now it's time to paint the picture. How do you present it, right? So I want to give you some concrete details and concrete places where you can really maximize, talking about the ultimate and starting out higher, and then also finishing higher as well. So on the online demo, at the top of page, or at slide 28, and at the top of page 9 in your manual, say this phrase first, okay? And this phrase will set up, right? It'll set up whether or not you're going to be able to pitch an ultimate, because in the manual itself, it has one little throwaway line about 2 bigger sets, and then let's say the customer talks or wants the homemaker, then it tries to go into the ultimate. Well, that's the hard way to do it, right? I'm going to show you a better way, starting out with the ultimate and then going to the homemaker. So it's super simple, but this is an effective line. Hey, Mrs. Jones, do you like to cook, love to cook, or you cook because you have to? Now, the reason why this is an effective question is because it ties it to the next phrase that you're going to say, right? So if that customer says they love to cook, then your phrase or your answer is, oh, great, Mrs. Jones. So for people that love to cook, or the way you would say it as well. So for people that love to cook, we actually have our complete set, right? And then you just say it. You say our complete set. And it's like a full toolbox on the kitchen counter. There's a lot of tools in there that you know probably wouldn't use every single day, but you'll be glad that you have them when you need them. For an example, Mrs. Jones, do you use a hammer every day? Absolutely not. But boy, when you need that hammer right away, isn't it nice to have that hammer in your toolbox? Same thing with Cutco, right? So again, that's framing, that's painting a picture, right? The next thing to do is to promote the pieces that don't come in a homemaker, right? If you want to sell more ultimates, well, you need to focus on the pieces that don't come in a homemaker, because the pieces that do come in a homemaker, if you don't explain the pieces that don't, they could just say, well, I'll just go for the homemaker, right? Well, if you don't explain those pieces and give them a reason why they should need them in addition to the homemaker, then they won't get it. And so that's why on your names and uses, there's your Fab Five of the ultimate pieces. These are the pieces that you want to get really good at explaining and doing a good names and uses on. So the cleaver, you want to get good at explaining the vegetable knife, the boning knife, the salmon knife, as well as the 4-inch paring knife. Now, the way that I explain these pieces, so I'll say it again: cleaver, vegetable knife, salmon knife, boning knife, and the 4-inch paring knife. Now, when you're explaining this to the customer, you got to realize, all right, this is a 32-piece set. There's 20 pieces at the top. There's 12 pieces at the bottom, 12 steak knives, right? So that's a lot of pieces. And naturally, the question will be, well, can I just use this knife for that and that? Well, technically you could, right? But you have to be able to show the customer why the ultimate pieces complement, but don't duplicate the pieces in the basic set or the family set. And the best way of doing that is by getting really good at names and uses and showing the customer and having that aha moment. So I'll give you an example. So it's like, hey, Mrs. Jones. So in our basic set or the homemaker, we got we have our paring knife, our 2 3/4-inch paring knife. Everybody loves this paring knife. It's a great paring knife for peeling and paring in the air, all that good stuff. But what they notice is that it's a shorter, stubbier blade. And so that's why we came out with the 4-inch paring knife, because it's a little bit longer if you wanted to get through whole apples and potatoes and things like that. See, again, they complement each other. They don't duplicate. Yes, you can do some of the same things there, but again, they're different enough in the customer's mind. You have to make it different enough for them to make sense and to justify getting those extra pieces. So that's just one example. Let's do another example here. The boning knife. Hey, Mrs. Jones, you know that petite carver there? Everybody loves the petite carver. They love the pieces with the teeth on it, that double D edge I was telling you about, but they notice people have noticed when they use it on raw meats, it tends to snag a little bit. And so that's why we came out with your boning knife. It's nice and flexible, and it gets really, really close to the bone as well. And we've done a side-by-side test with our trimmer and also the boning knife on trimming fat off a chicken breast. Took 22 swipes with the trimmer, took 2 with the boning knife. So again, now the customer's like, yeah, I could trim it with my trimmer, but boy, it would be easier with that boning knife. Oh, it makes sense to have that one. It complements. It doesn't duplicate, right? Same thing with some of the larger chef's knives, right? So with the salmon knife, Mrs. Jones, hey, I never call this a salmon knife, by the way, because if you call it a salmon knife, well, psychologically, what do you think you're going to use it for? Salmon, right? If you're not eating a lot of salmon, you're not getting a lot of value out of this, right? So I'd never call it a salmon knife, Mrs. Jones. I actually call this a fruits and veggies or a melons knife, right? So what's cool about it is it actually super flexible. You can get really close to the rind, save a lot of your melon, and then use the same knife to cut up in the cubes and everything like that. And customers are like, oh, yeah, I don't think I would use that on salmon, but that makes sense. Also, you can use it on thin, you can use it for thin slices for like deli meats, things like. So again, you have to make the customer realize that, hey, even though it's an extra piece in here, there's a specific use for this piece. There's a right tool for the right job in the kitchen in the ultimate. So once you've been able to kind of paint the picture, now you got to get the deal, right? You got to get them to sign the paper, give you the credit card. And there's a couple of ways in which you can do that as well. One of the ways that I like to sell and close on the ultimate is using the steak knives as leverage with the comparison of the table knives. So here's a couple of things that I would say to, Mrs. Jones, talking about the ultimate. Hey, Mrs. Jones, do you like our table knives, the kind of butter steak knife, or would you like more of the steak knife, the Texas Roadhouse steak knife? Oh, you like the Texas Roadhouse one? Cool. Well, just so you know, just a heads up, if you do like the bigger steak knife right there, unfortunately, it doesn't fit in the smaller blocks that we have. So if you do like it, you kind of have to go with one of our, larger sets there, just so you know. Now, again, what does that do? Well, now they see that, hey, if I'm going to go for the big, if I'm going to go for the larger steak knives, then I want to have the bigger set because I want it to, fit nicely and everything. So that's just a small little subtle thing that you can add in there that gets the customer thinking, okay, well, that makes sense. I probably would go with the bigger block, so it's going to house all of my bigger steak knives instead of just kind of having them in the drawer, right? Next thing you can use when you're closing is use the stainless flatware table knives as leverage. So one thing I'll tell the customer is, hey, Mrs. Jones, by the way, in this complete set, what's nice about having all the big steak knives is if you like the little ones that I showed you with, or that you saw on the video, the little table knives, if you like those right there, we actually have a full line of forever high carb or 1810 stainless flatware that actually has those table knives in them. And what a lot of customers will do, Mrs. Jones, is they'll bundle it with they'll either bundle it with the flatware, or they'll get the ultimate set and then get the flatware later, and they'll have the table knives. That way they have both instead of having to choose between one or the other. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I like the fact of having steak knives. And then if I want the table knives later, I can have the flatware. And guess what? You're setting that up to sell them flatware in the future, right? You like both. Why not have both, right? And then the last thing I want to say in terms of closing is always have some pre-planned package specials in your back pocket to close with a customer in case they are either on the fence or they need an extra little push or an incentive. So for an example, with the complete sets, whenever somebody is telling me that, hey, I want to think about it, or it's one of those things where it's like, I can't do it right now, then I want to make sure that I'm going to use, other tools in my toolbox as leverage. So one thing I'll do is say, Mrs. Jones, Cutco sets the prices, right? Cutco pays me to sell Cutco. I can't change any prices. If I were to sell this set to you for $1 less than what you see here, guess where that extra dollar comes out of? My commission. So the best way for me to give you extra value, Mrs. Jones, is actually by helping you get some, items for free on my commission there. I'll actually buy out of my commission to give you some extra value. So for an example, with the complete set, I noticed, Mrs. Jones, you like the complete set and you were having kind of a, trouble thinking between the steak knives and the table knives. Well, one thing I can do for you, Mrs. Jones, is you can get the complete set, and we have this really cool small block that has all of the table knives in it. It's over $300 or $400. I can actually go ahead and buy that for you out of my commission to help you to help earn your business as an extra incentive on the complete set. And that way, not only are you getting a corporate discount, but now you're getting $300+ worth of free stuff on top of that. So how does that sound for you? And then you ask the question. Another thing that you can do is you can do the half and half steak knives and the table knives there and you can do the B block. If you don't know what the B block is, I don't have too much time to explain it, but it's already in your app. But essentially what it is it's the ultimate set, right? So without the steak knives at the bottom, and then you bonus the steak knives on top of that. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry, ask your manager. They'll tell you how to do it if they haven't already told you. So those are a few things that you can use when you're closing on the ultimate itself. So I would definitely use the table knife with the block, with the complete, and the half and half, and only do the B block if you absolutely have to. If the customer is just dead set on, not entertaining the offer that you're putting in front of them. So after you've had the deal there, after you've kind of done a little bit of back and forth and all that good stuff, well, is the deal over? Absolutely not. This is what separates the average reps from the top reps, right? So the average reps get the order. They're like, whew, I got the order. I'm going to hurry up, pack up my stuff and get out and go. The top reps, again, because they're not going to do a disservice to their customer by not doing this. The top reps, just like if you're at any retail place or any market, the top reps are going to upserve and ask the question. So think about it this way: if you're in a grocery store and you're going through the grocery line, or if you're in a drive-through, what's one of the questions that they always say is very subtle and you probably don't even think about, but they say it all the time? Will there be anything else, right? That's the phrase. Will there be anything else? Or would you like anything else? And why shouldn't you do it? Should be the same way in Cutco. Like, we shouldn't close on something big and then like hurry up and then close everything down, get on by our way and take our commission. No, you should upserve, not upsell, but upserve like a boss. Hey, Mrs. Jones, you already got the complete set. Just so you know, the more you get, the more you save. I saw that you like so-and-so. Normally, the price on that extra thing that you like, so-and-so, is this, but because you're doing this, I can actually do this. What are your thoughts on that? Right? And that increases your CPO. I mean, it's insane, like how much more CPO you will get just by simply asking the question and doing your job, serving the customer, right? You are serving the customer by offering them this stuff. And when you have that mental shift, instead of thinking of it as, hey, I'm selling the customer versus serving the customer, that's where the confidence comes from, being able to show the ultimate, right? Because it's not just a sale. It's like, hey, I'm serving the customer. But then also what that does is you close higher, you finish higher, right? And so if you sell 5 ultimates, I mean, on the CPO, that's 10K, over 10K day right there for you, with a little bit of orders here and there, right? So it doesn't take much in terms of the makeup of a 10K day, but I've had a few 10K days, and it's because of ultimates and some, other sets as well, but it's because I had the confidence to present the ultimate, and because I had the education behind the ultimate, and because I knew what to present, I knew how to close, and then I also knew how to upserve. The one last thing I want to tell you about the upserve here, and then I'll be pretty much wrapping up my message, is, only upserve when you have the credit card or the financial information. So only upserve when you have that down, because the worst thing to do when you're upserving is to not have the order, in hand. And then you start to upserve, and all of a sudden the customer gets super overwhelmed and confused. And then guess what they say? Well, I tell you what, let us think on it. We're gonna go to sleep and think on it, and we'll call you back in the morning, or we'll call you, on so and so day. Well, guess what happens? They usually don't call you. It's not going to happen. So make sure, if you're going to upserve, make sure that you have the credit card. And then also when you're upserving, just make sure that, when you phrase it as, hey, Mrs. Jones, you're already doing this. Normally, the extra thing that you wanted would be this. But because you're doing this, I can actually do it for this. And see how it goes. So that right there is what I have for you guys on selling ultimates. Hopefully you got some good nuggets and tips out of that message there. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. My manager is Buddy, so he has all of my information there. So you can reach out to him to get my information. But also Kyle and Mike and all those other guys have my information there too. So, hey, SE1 is just beginning, baby. That's the first one. Now, get ready for the second one. Thank you so much. You guys have a good one. We'll see you on the other side.
All right. Well, that is, you can hear me, right? That was absolutely fantastic message. And many of you know that we have an upcoming push, and it's the SC2 push. So for most of you that you're just getting started, you're just kind of learning the job, right? It's like someone handed you I used a golf analogy. Someone handed you a 5-iron, and you're like, I've never golfed. What am I supposed to do with this thing, right? And hopefully, whether you've golfed or not, you can kind of understand the analogy, right? But pretty soon you'll start getting comfortable and used to it. And you're like, I'm gonna pull out the 6-iron. It's slightly different than the 5-iron, and that's really what this is all about. What we're trying to do, our objective is to help you all along the way to prepare you for the big push, right? The push that's going to really make your summer be just this unbelievable summer. We'll talk about this a little bit more specifically tomorrow and beyond. Let me just ask you to throw in the chat, what are some of the nuggets that you got? What are some of the things that you felt were most valuable for you to hear from, or even, just even it could be like, wow, his demeanor was really fantastic, right? I could tell why people place orders, right? Keeping in mind that Fonz sold $10,000 his first summer, right? He was not a record breaker, but right now he's like, one of the most, elite representatives in our company right now. So focusing on the pieces, that are not in the homie, that's really important, painting the picture, right? Learning about the product, right? I think that's one of the most important things in sales is just to know what you're selling, right? My wife and I are remodeling our kitchen. And so we went to Apt the other day. It's a electronic place. And, the man immediately, I said, I don't have a lot of time right now, but he started asking us, so, what are you looking for in a refrigerator? Do you want French doors? And he was just so knowledgeable. He was like the refrigerator expert, and his expertise guided us along the path. And then we're like, all right, we're also going to replace our kitchen, our range, and also our oven, and he's like, great, I'll go ahead and show you. And he walked us through, and there's such a range in, ovens, right? You can spend $10,000 plus on a range. You can spend $800 on a range, right? And so I got to tell you this is that he didn't flinch at all when he presented the highest priced products. He wasn't like, I wonder if you can afford it. By the way, I walked in with like a t-shirt. I think I had probably been, I probably worked out earlier in the day. It was on a Saturday. I don't even know if I showered that day, right? So I walked in a t-shirt and shorts and flip-flops, for all, he knew I couldn't afford it. But what did he do? He gave me the courtesy of showing it to me. And that's what I said to him. I'm in sales. So I said, hey, tell me, okay, this is what we're looking at. Tell me the step up and the step down and what's the difference, right? And he didn't have any problems. He was like, hey, I'm going to professionally just show you the advantages. And then I said, what do you think? And then he gave us his opinion. That's where you come into play. You've heard your manager say that 10% of the people that you do an appointment for will never buy no matter who shows them Cutco, whether Fonz shows them Cutco, whether I show them Cutco, or whether you show them Cutco. 10% will always buy. If you're the worst representative in the world and you stumble, you can't even speak to them because you're just so nervous, they're going to buy, right? 10% will always buy. 10% will never buy. That 80% are going to buy depending on what? It's not them, it's actually you. And once you start taking ownership that, hey, my demeanor, my enthusiasm, how I'm communicating, my confidence, my knowledge on the product, all of those things really matter. I want you to write this down. Rapport plus certainty equals influence. How many of you would like to be an influential person later in life? Whether that's to your kids or in your community, whether that's, at your job, whatever. And I'm sure you all are people of influence. Don't hear that the wrong way. But how many of you would like to expand your influence? Right. So rapport it's rapport plus certainty equals influence. So not plus influence. Right. But thanks for helping out there, Allison. But here's what I want you to do. Like, how do you become certain? Become knowledgeable, right? Become knowledgeable on the product. So that's what this guy, David was his name. I still remember it because I was so impressed with him. He's only been in the job for 5 years, which again, might seem like a long time, but it's really not that long to know all of the products that are out there. Again, but he was really certain in describing why he liked different things. And he made a suggestion. He said, based on what you're saying, this is what I think you should get. And here's why. And it's okay for you to do that. It's okay. That's why you want to ask, do you like to cook? Do you love to cook? Or do you cook because you like to? Do you cook because you have to? Right? So I love to cook. My wife cooks because she has to. In other words, I don't make her. You guys get the point, right? Sometimes she cooks, sometimes I do. But she doesn't want to cook when she cooks. She just wants to get the job done as fast as possible. That's why Cutco is a great product, because it gets her in and out of the kitchen faster. For me, I love cooking, and that's why I'm like, oh, I'm going to use this knife and this knife, and right. It's like a fun project for me. So it's really important to think about that. What type of person buys an Ultimate? I want you to think about this. Someone that can afford $20 a day. Right? Someone that can afford $20 a day. Now, I was just telling my brother the other day, I remember one of the jobs I had when I was your age, right? For most of you, right? When I was 18, I was a lifeguard, and I got paid $10 an hour. So I made $400 a week, right? So saying $20 a day, that would have sounded like a lot of money. But you know what I can also tell you? So, I live in Evanston. There's this place called Buffalo Joe's. They serve buffalo wings, right? So like most people, I didn't pack a lunch, right? Because I was too cool to pack a lunch, right? Dummy, right? But I went to Buffalo Joe's every day for lunch. It was like $6, $7 for lunch. If I, at my $400 a week, could afford $6, $7 for lunch, what do you think moms and dads who make more than $400 a week, right? What do you think they can afford? It's a lot more. I hope you understand that. Okay. I want you to keep something in mind. Again, if you lost how many of you have an iPhone? If you lost your iPhone, would you say, oh, guess I'm not going to have a phone. Guess, I'm going to have to, use quarters at the payphone, right? What would you do? You'd buy another iPhone. How? You'd find a way, you'd put it on a payment plan, et cetera, right? That's what a lot of people who buy Ultimates do, is they put it on the 5-way. That's $20 a day. And for $20 a day for the next 5 months, you have knives that last you the rest of your life. And here's what I can tell you. And some of you, I've shared this before. Here's what we replaced in the last year. We replaced our HVAC. It went out on us, right? When it goes out on you, guess what? You don't say like, oh, maybe we'll just, gut it out here. It was the winter. We had to replace it that day. Okay. What else? Our roof. It had damage from hail. Right? Fortunately, insurance covered that. But again, like, things break. My point to you is most things become obsolete. And the other day, guess what else happened? The dishwasher went out. It sounds like we're like our home is falling apart. I know it sounds crazy, but we can afford things, right? But our dishwasher went out, and simultaneously the kitchen sink, like, it started, like, there was a pipe that started, like, water started coming out. So we were like, we don't even have a way to wash things. Fortunately, a plumber came to our house, and then we're in this decision of like, okay, we're going to replace this, even though in a month they're going to redo our kitchen. So it was just, we were in this situation where we're like, we're going to have to spend this money, even though we know we're replacing all of this. Right. And so I'm sharing this with you, not so you can feel pity for me, right? We can afford it. I want you to know that. But I share this with you because these are the kinds of things that happen every day for everyday people. Right. And so $20 a day for something, if I could spend $20 a day for the next 5 months and never have to buy a refrigerator, oven, stove, whatever, any of that ever again, slam dunk, I would do that in a nano. So you could see Ann, by the way, nodding her head. She's also a homeowner, right? It would be a slam dunk. If I could spend $20 a day for an iPhone that would never wear out, never break or anything like that, and they would upgrade me basically whenever a new iPhone came out, how many of you would do that? $20 a day for 5 months, right? You totally would. You totally would. And that's what people are investing in. They're not buying Cutco. Right? I buy like these, I have bars, right? I have these macro bars. I buy these. All right. I invest in Cutco. And I just need you to understand that when someone places an order for Cutco, it's an investment that they're going to use 2 to 3 times a day. Multiple people will use it 2 to 3 times a day for the rest of their life. Even on days, by the way, that we order out, we still use Cutco that day, multiple times a day. Even it's like making sandwiches or whatever the case may be.